All right, so I'm between lunch and you guys. I'll try to keep you at least engaged. Let's see. So can you make it as a screen? There's a different slide. Okay. So we're going to talk about virtual kubelet as a base thing and slowly touch upon virtual nodes. Virtual nodes is Microsoft implementation of virtual kubelet. Before that, I work as a Microsoft, technical evangelist with Microsoft. I work with ISPs and startups advising their containers development and service fabric and Kubernetes. Lately, a lot of Kubernetes. So let's what is virtual kubelet, right? So virtual kubelet has been discussed in KubeCon 2017. This is the pet project by Brendan Burns, right? So he has written as a pet project in using the TypeScript, and then after seeing a lot of success, then he thought, let's make it as a open source by writing everything in Go language. So once if it has become a Go language and put it in the open source in a GitHub, then a lot of other providers like the Amazon and VMware, HyperSearch. There are 12 providers today. They take this as a base and then start writing the separate providers for that. For an example, if you look at here, the virtual kubelet on a high level, it's a kind of a trying to pretend that it's actually a kubelet, but it's not actually a kubelet, right? It's not, and also it's not a replacement for your kubelet. It will be in a side by side in the same box. It will try to take the incoming load and then pass it to the container instances directly, right? So here, the advantage, what you get here, if you look at on a high level, there are 4 nodes, but there are the 5th one is the virtual kubelet, right? There is a node at all. So that is the provider, it's a choice to the provider to span that, the load to the container instances. It could be running in Azure, AWS, or Alibaba, or Huawei, right? It's a flexibility there. Today, there is no flexibility to write it in the bare metal, but it's there in the open source. Anybody wanted to contribute or anybody wanted to write as a provider for bare metal, it's more than welcome. And last December, this Microsoft, we thought like this is the, it's getting adopted very well. Let's donate this project to the CNCF. Now this is getting nurtured by CNCF, and thanks to CNCF community here to take this or accept this project as one of the it's a good project to nurture, going forward. So what is the benefit of going with virtual kubelet? Traditionally, if you look at, this is how the scaling works, right? Let's say you have a horizontal pod scaler, right? So traditional ways, like you have a 3 machine, looking at the metrics, you try to scale maybe a 4th or 5th machine, right? Traditionally, when you have this kind of auto scaling happens, you would see that there is a latency, getting the image pulled, and top of the image you have to set up the Docker runtime and then prep the image by looking at the database connections or maybe a VPC, VP. Ultimately, it all takes at least maybe 2 minutes to set up everything, right? By the time you lose your customer's experience, right? So, but in case of if you throw this burstable scenarios or burstable workloads to a container instance, the spanning a container is very quick, right? In matter of like 10 seconds to 20 seconds, depends on where you put the container images, right? If it is co-located in the same data center, you would be able to set up this whole container instance quickly in less than 7 to 8 seconds, right? That's the beauty of this virtual kubelet and having the burstable scenario achieved through containers directly instead of spinning a new nodes. If you look at here, I'm going to maintain this 4 node as it is, whereas I'm going to burst all other extra incoming spike, 1,000 times spike of load to containers. It's safe for me because the containers are built per seconds, right? I'm not going to pay for those additional nodes, wait time. I'm going to basically avoid all those things. This is a quick thing, as I work with startups and ISVs, the adoption of containers, academically we do a lot of things with Dockers and other things, but the container maturity is still yet to happen, at least in India I see. If you ask in the boardroom discussions, a lot of people are still learning about what is containers and Dockers. But it's a good time to start with that. By 2020, the Gartner predicts that either you will, some form of containers you will consume or it's going to produce the containers, right? So it's a great time as a developer, you start jumping into the Docker or maybe whatever the containers you prefer. By the time I wanted to thank Docker community. If anybody is Docker fans here, any Docker fans here? thanks to Docker, because it's a 6th birthday we recently celebrated. Without Docker, this nothing happens like, this massive conference like Kubernetes or massive open source activities, because the Docker completely changed the way we look at the virtualization. So let's quickly look at some demos about how we could actually yeah, it works. This is the path where you can, in a GitHub, you can go and check it out. There are 12 providers today available supporting this virtual kubelet, which is a good thing. The more and more going to come in. If any of you happen to listen to Brendan Burns in the last KubeCon conference, he gave a very broad picture about where we are leading as a Kubernetes community, right? So going forward, we have only 50% achieved as a managed Kubernetes, right? So your master nodes are completely taken by the cloud provider, but still there is a risk of maintaining those worker nodes. But by having this virtual kubelet story going perfectly married with all those master nodes taken by managed provider, and this also going to managed service, there's a chance that you will get 100% serverless Kubernetes, right? So you pass all those risk of maintaining the virtual machines to this cloud provider, and you focus on your application development. So I think this is still in a kind of a experimental project, but I think by mid of this year we'll get a clarity about how you could actually move your production workload using this virtual kubelet based project. So these are the providers as we discussed. So I'm going to some story about Contoso. The Contoso is a newly developed an e-commerce portal. Assume that this is a front-end application. They are going to prepare for a massive day or a big day celebrations like in Amazon or Flipkart, right? So the Contoso has recently launched a Zoom player. Do we have a Zoom player? No, my MP3 player. Who want MP3 player? But anyway, this is jokes apart. So they couldn't able to take up the load, incoming load at a certain time, right? So in the last big day sale, they faced a problem like they couldn't able to allow, or they couldn't able to accept all the incoming requests at the same time when the sale opened, right? So there were a lot of people experiencing login issues, or they couldn't able to search the catalog and all the front end issues basically, because the front end is very hard. But the Kubernetes is trying to scale by adding more and more machines, but it couldn't able to accept all the loads. But this time they made an idea that they thought let me, instead of adding more nodes, let me add as a container instances, right? So let's try to generate some load. So I'm using a Hey, that's again written in a Go language. It's a HTTP load generator. I'm going to generate some load on my websites, the Contoso websites. So what is going to happen? It will wait for some threshold or metrics and automatically understand that, okay, I can't handle more than, I can't handle enough after this. So let me go and spin a lot of container instances in the backend, right? So instead of spinning a nodes, it is going to pass all the incoming traffic to the nodes, right? So I also have a Prometheus installed as a container in the same part. So it is going to pull the logs and then put it to the Grafana dashboards. So we'll quickly see. Looks like my timeout is gone. Let's come back to the Grafana dashboard to see how my containers are coming and helping me to take the incoming load, right? So if you look at it, the left side, I'm very poor in designing this Grafana thing because I learned last week time. I picked very quickly, and then so if you look at here, I continue to have only one node cluster, right? So my building will be always charged on only one node. So because of the increase in the spike in the traffic, I'm saying that, hey, virtual kubelet, please take care of all my incoming traffic to the container instances directly instead of spinning in nodes. So if you look at the right side, it starts with 0 and then eventually it starts with 5 based on the number of incoming requests. It creates more and more container instances. By the way, if anybody tried container instances, Azure container instances or any other, perfect. So it's like instead of creating a virtual machine, now containers are taking everywhere. Now containers are taking over the data center. So you can directly create a container instances. Containers as a service, that's the best way to say. It could be a sandbox container, it could be a SFTP container, or it could be a log generator. You can directly rent a container from the cloud provider. That's the idea. Let me go to the Azure portal, and then, yeah. So we have now 2 more is added now. Eventually you would see there are 50 or 60 containers directly coming. If you look at very closely, I have only one virtual machine, so I'm going to pay per month, but all these containers I'm going to build by seconds. So it gives me, or it takes my incoming load perfectly, and then, it's a burstable scenario is now handled without losing the customer experience. Yeah, slowly it's picking up, you can see, but if you keep it for some time, then you would see that more and more containers coming here. So we have engineering outside in the Microsoft booth. If anybody wanted to try out this virtual kubelet, we call it as a virtual node. We don't call it as a virtual kubelet. We could also run this virtual kubelet in any cloud provider today. It's still an experimental project, but virtual nodes, we are working as a Microsoft. We try to reuse the same open source what we have put it outside as a virtual nodes. We call it as a virtual nodes, but underlying is a virtual kubelet. So we are happy to help if any questions around this virtual nodes or virtual kubelets. Yes, we are in the Microsoft booth. Cool. That's a quick demo. Catch you guys outside.